Williams. I'm the Executive Director of the Frayser Community Development Corporation. I've been here since last year, and I'm proud to carry on the tradition of working to revitalize the community in Frayser. The Frayser CDC started in the year 2000, started in one room out of the Ed Rice Community Center with one employee, Steve Lockwood. But the story goes back further than that. It starts with, Frayser really being its own town and having a distinct character here in the city. Then it developed into an industrial working class neighborhood. There were factories here, mostly a white working class neighborhood. I believe it was designed for cars and travel. And so it maintained that feel for decades. But then around the 70s, as businesses started to close or move, the economics of the community started to change. And then the entrance of busing, I think impacted a lot of people here and throughout the city of Memphis. Busing was pretty controversial in Memphis, and people, didn't really embrace it. And so you had the incidences of white flight from Frayser, where people moved as far east as they could go. But Frayser still maintained its character as a working class neighborhood, as a working class Black neighborhood now. But when the demographics of the neighborhood changed to majority Black, so went the resources, the investment, and over the next few decades, the neighborhood changed dramatically. Homes lost their value. It just wasn't the same vibrant community that it was. And so community leaders and interested people in Frayser got together and chartered the Frayser Community Development Corporation. The idea was to bring back home ownership, to bring back businesses, and to bring back and strengthen the community of Frayser as a whole. And so they were lucky enough to find their first employee, Steve Lockwood, who I don't think enough can be said about his vision and what he and the team here have done over the last 20 years. Probably what's most significant is the Frayser CDC being able to withstand the housing crisis of 2008. How they were able to do that, when so many other CDCs couldn't, it's I think due to that team and their creative work and a lot of luck probably. But Frayser CDC did survive the 2008 downturn and came out stronger. They acquired property, cleaned up vacant lots, rehabbed properties, and were instrumental in helping community members become first-time home buyers with the inclusion of their housing counseling program and having a HUD-certified counselor here to work with people around credit, work with them around the lending process, and that's really been a cornerstone of what we do here. And so they've been able to do this over the last 10 years of starting to rehab houses, and now we're even starting to build new in Frayser. And not many people are building new in Frayser because of the downturn in value here. And so it wasn't economically possible for people to build. We're only able to build with significant subsidies from the city, state, and private donors. And so when I came on board, that is really the job that I have, to continue the great work here, to expand, to look for new ways to engage the community and continue to grow and strengthen Frayser. I think it started in general terms of increasing business and attracting business and bringing families and home buyers to Frayser. But over the years, I think as we've learned what happened in Frayser, it wasn't an accident that Frayser lost value, that investment didn't occur here. This was by design. Um, Benign neglect is real. And I know that from the properties that we develop. We have lots that haven't been touched in 50 years, which means that it costs us more money to develop those properties. And then when you look at what happened to Frayser and why, um, the short answer of that is it's institutional racism. When the resources go the way that they have here, um, you know that there is a issue. The issue here is that there was a harm done to African Americans in this community. And so while the mission of the Frayser CDC has been to, strengthen the community, we're looking at that now as to help repair the harm that was done to the people who live here. And so with that in mind, when you're doing community development, I think it's really important that people keep in mind, if you're addressing a harm that was done, you have to include the people who the harm was done to in that solution. They have to be the focus. And they also have to be at the table. Because if they're not, and I've been part of efforts like that, it won't be successful. And anyone who's doing community development, it doesn't matter who your target population is. It doesn't matter their education level. It doesn't matter their experience. Your target population knows what they need. And it's really important that you listen to them and make sure that you have the means to find out where they are and to get the truth. The Frayser CDC has expanded its mission, and we are articulating that with the inclusion of our Frayser Connect program. Frayser Connect is sort of the embodiment of our mission, meaning that it's action steps around bringing business back and strengthening the community. So there's a partnership with Mass Mutual, Epicenter, and the Rise Foundation in Memphis. All of us have come together to help businesses and to help community members and advocate for them around issues of concern, like public safety, like crime, like disinvestment, like tax and property assessments. And so we have a staff of 4 that make up the Frayser Connect, and that is our community organizing arm. And so as we continue to grow and continue to serve the community, we will continue to evolve the mission. I love helping people, I really do. I purposely chose to go into nonprofits. My undergraduate degree is in nonprofit management. My master's degree is in nonprofit management. And I pursued a doctorate so that I could continue and grow in the nonprofit sector. And what I really, really love about this, specifically helping Black people, I love all people. I've had a very diverse experience and background with people all over the country of all different nationalities and races. But I was born here in Memphis, and growing up in Memphis, you really saw discrimination right in front of your eyes. However, although that's part of the fabric here, I still had an amazing childhood and experience here in Memphis. But when I see Black people being treated in a way that disadvantages them, I want to make sure that we kind of balance the scales. And so it has given me so much joy to come here and to do the work and really be able to see very quickly and much sooner than I thought the impact that this organization has on people's lives and the community. Um, Particularly during the pandemic when, there's so much going on outside, we can all come here and know that we're contributing something positive to not just Frayser, but the city and. What I love most about the Frayser community is one, it's very welcoming, very friendly, and there is a level of unity amongst community leaders and community members that I haven't seen in other places. Again, like I said, I've worked all over the country, worked with lots of community groups, but the groups come together and they support one another. And I know that didn't happen overnight. There was trust that had to be built, but we're all in contact with each other. We all support each other's events. And I think that just speaks to, the love that people have for this community. And outside of the people, what I like about Frayser is the topography. I like lots of trees. I like the green around here. I like the fact that Frayser is so big that it just varies from where you are, what it looks like. There's a lake. There are lots of parks. I just think it's a great slice of Memphis, and Memphis just has so much character. I've lived in DC and San Francisco for the last 20 years, but nothing is like Memphis. Memphis has that kind of folksy feel because there's a rich tradition of storytelling here. And the stories are, fantastic. And some of them, I've lived and seen that they're real. The religious community here in Memphis, I think, is so strong and powerful and impactful. And there's nothing like it. There's nothing like going to a church on Sunday and hearing real gospel music. That's something that I only find really in Memphis. And just the people. It really doesn't matter. In general, I think the people in Memphis are just the nicest, kindest people. And so, yeah, it's always good to be home, and I'm glad to be staying home this time. My hope for Frayser and Memphis is continued unity, just to strengthen collaboration with one another. If the pandemic has taught us anything, we are stronger together. The problems that we have to face are so big that we can't do them divided. And so I really hope that people come together, empathize with people whose life experience might be different from yours. Believe them when they tell you their experience. Because I think if people really understood the story in Frayser, there'd be a lot more resources directed here. And that's one of my major hopes for Frayser, an influx of significant dollars and resources to allow us to continue to develop the land, create ownership opportunities. Memphis is #1 in the country for converting homeowners to renters. And we really need to slow that tide so that people can still have the ability to build equity. And this is important for the African American community specifically because the majority of us were shut out of the ability to build equity through homeownership for 30 years due to FHA regulations and redlining and things like that. And so we've got to continue to right that wrong. And so while homeownership amongst African Americans is increasing, we need to make sure that it continues. saying if you don't know your history, then you're bound to repeat it, I think is so important. And when I talked about Memphis having history, there's a rich oral tradition of good, happy stories, but there's also Memphis' story around racial violence and segregation and discrimination. We just marked the 100th anniversary of the Tulsa bombing and riots. But a lot of people don't know that a race riot happened in Memphis just a few months before, where Black business owners were attacked and lynched because they had gained prosperity. And I think that's important for us to remember, and important for us to make it a priority to make an investment in African American communities, because when those communities do well, everyone does well. And so I really hope that people understand why investment is needed here, and the benefits that it will have for the entire community. When I spoke about Tulsa, what's important to me about that story is not the bombing, but it's about the fact that Black Wall Street existed. And I think that not just here in Frayser, but all over the country, people like me and my staff are working to really realize the dream of Black Wall Street. And what that means is Black economic power and growth and investment. And I think that's going to be something that we see a lot more of over the next few years, is Black people and Black communities realizing their economic strength and continuing to learn and grow, invest, and like I said, strengthen their communities and build wealth.